as we know, the NFL is a copycat league, right, Jared? As soon as one team has success doing one thing, boom, a few other teams try to mirror that. Is this?
Yeah.
Do you think this could be, a trend going forward of teams now, taking quarterbacks off the scrap heap, if you will? Not that Tom Brady, is bad by any stretch, but he wasn't
Right.
coveted like maybe a Deshaun Watson is or other quarterbacks in the draft. We only saw you can get franchise quarterbacks and win Super Bowls by drafting them. Is this going to be the new wave now, where you can get quarterbacks, off of other teams and plug them in and win?
You know what? I think that there's some merit to that, as for sure. All of these situations are, specific to the people and the teams involved. But you look at what the Rams did in getting Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford is a good quarterback who has just been surrounded by, a bad team with the Lions, right?
Right.
And not only for 1 year, but for throughout the bulk of his career, even though they made the playoffs, I think 3 times under Matthew Stafford. But you put him on the Rams, from with Sean McVay and whatever they could do creatively, offensively, but also with that entire team and the defense and all that. So we'll see if that works. But that's kind of I think going to be door number 2, if you will. Last year, Bruce Arians at the combine, where people were asking him about what was going to happen at quarterback with Jameis Winston and all their other options. And he said, hey, door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3. Now, at that time, he obviously knew that they were going to make a play at Brady, but didn't know how it was going to turn out. So that was kind of his response to it. We'll see what the options are. And I think more teams will be more open-minded to that. I also hope, Brian, that more teams will be open-minded to giving some brothers some opportunities to have some leadership on the coaching staff. As the Bucs had, 3 black coordinators, man, talking about the offensive coordinator, Byron Leftwich, Todd Bowles, and the defense, and Keith Armstrong with the special teams. And you know how much conversation there has been, not only this year, but last year, the year before, about black coaches getting opportunities. Well, Bruce Arians brought those guys in. He had a connection to all of them. Todd Bowles played for him at Temple. Keith Armstrong played for him at Temple. Byron Leftwich was one of his backup quarterbacks when he was coordinator at the Steelers. And so he gave those guys opportunities. But I think it was really pointed that Bruce Arians throughout the week, and really going back even before that, really tried to emphasize how much of a factor Byron Leftwich was in running their offense. Not only in calling the plays, but installing it and running it. And too often, there's a sense, and we don't always know how much the head coach is, running things, or how much is he delegating to other people. But Bruce Arians really made the point that he was giving, Byron Leftwich, a lot of, control of the offense. And we know Todd Bowles on the defense, what a wonderful plan they came up with to deal with Patrick Mahomes. That was a great thing to see if you like defensive football.
100%. Jared, that leads me to my next question. Perfect. I was going to say, now, with your MVP vote, I'm curious, which way did you go? Because I started the show by saying Todd Bowles MVP of the game. His defensive game plan against the Chiefs, I mean, that defense did stuff to the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes we've never seen before. I mean, think about it, Jarrett, 9 points this Kansas City offense scored last night. It was so impressive what Todd Bowles was able to do. I'm curious, at least MVP, are you even allowed to maybe vote for a coordinator, or at least what was your impressions of what Todd Bowles did and his blueprints on the game last night?
Yeah. So let's start. I did vote for Tom Brady, right?
Okay.
And it's weird because that has come up before, where you go, hey, this entire defense deserves the award, right? But, they don't ask you to vote for a unit, and that would almost be a lazy thing, So, the way it's set up, they don't have ground rules per se.
I was just going to ask, is it like a blank paper where you just write down a name, or is it like a fill in the blank where you have like multiple options?
No, what it is typically is a blank sheet of paper with your name on it and, your vote, right?
Okay.
Well, this year, they didn't even have a piece of paper. So I get them, and I've done this now for like 20 years or whatever, right? So I always like to see the piece of paper at my spot in the press box, and I'll snap a picture of it and, send it on social media or whatever. But they didn't even have a piece of paper this time. And so I called the NFL official, one of the press box, and I said, "Hey, where's my press box?" Because I knew I was doing it because they called, a few days before the game and said, "Hey, you're in to do it again, right?" And I said, "Of course, right." So this time, being in this COVID thing, there was no paper, and I asked the NFL officials, like, "Wait, did you guys forget to give me the paper or what?" And she says, "No, just text your answer to the guy, one of the designated staffers, and that's going to be your vote." And I was like, "Okay," so they still have a record of it because you're going to text it to them, and that's how they did it last night. But again, just to get to the point about picking one person or picking a unit, yeah, there have been a number of times over the years where you are tempted to want to vote for an entire unit or even a coach, and it's never happened before. We've had co-MVP. We had a co-MVP before years ago with the Cowboys with Harvey Martin and Randy White. But yeah, I think you can definitely make the case, as has happened before, to pick a unit. Now, that being said, who would be the one guy on defense if you had to pick a player from the Bucks? I mean, they had a lot of people doing a
It's
lot of good
tough. I
stuff.
know.
Yeah, Devin White would
Mm-hmm.
be maybe the guy. Shaq Barrett would be a guy. Even Ndamukong Suh, I don't know if it rose to the level of MVP, but he made a couple big plays. So it was definitely a team effort. And yeah,
It
but
was.
Tom Brady gets it from this standpoint too. Leonard Fournette was saying after the game that Tom Brady throughout the whole week texted all the guys on the team one simple message at like 11 o'clock at night, and that message was, "We will win." Kind of that whole subliminal seduction stuff, man. Just putting that on your brain, sending it to everybody day after day after day leading up to the Super Bowl. And oh, by the way, they did win. But, Bruce Arians was saying, hey, that's just an example of how, Brady really came in and helped change their culture. I mean, it's great leadership. And, when you do that, you also have to back it up. And that's why you were able to see Tom Brady chew people out
Mm-hmm.
right during the season. And then when they win, those same people he was chewing out, those linemen for the most part, I mean, they're loving on him. So, yeah, Tom Brady, ultimate leader, ultimate winner on top of it. So he deserves the MVP, even though he had just 200 yards passing. He didn't make any big mistakes and blunders
Mm-hmm.
that hurt him. And you can win a lot of games like that when you have your defense balling the way the Bucks had it.
They were balling for sure. We're talking to Jarrett Bell, USA Today NFL Comments. Two more quick questions for you, Jarrett, before I get out. I'm just curious. Speaking of Tom Brady, obviously the big question is this his greatest career accomplishment? Do you think so?
Whew. It's great. Yeah, I haven't thought of
Yes.
it yet like that to compare them, but I think it is because of a couple reasons. One, he's 43 years old, but even more so because he switched teams,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody's been able to win a Super Bowl in the other conference. We've had, Peyton Manning was able to win 2 Super Bowls, and he was Peyton when he won that one with the Broncos. That was all on the defense, right? In fact, Von Miller, a defensive player, was the MVP that game. So I think, yeah, this is Tom Brady's greatest accomplishment, and also because it happened in just one year. When they signed him, I
Crazy.
thought, when they got him, I thought, okay, maybe they'll build this thing up, and in 2 years they could, compete for a Super Bowl. Well, fooled me. But
Jared, I'm with you there. I thought playoffs, maybe a win or two, and that's it.
yeah, and build it for next year. But think about
Mm-hmm.
this too. If you have a season like this, like they've had in the NFL with all of the COVID related challenges to it, who are you going to roll with? I mean, to
That's a good
win.
point.
Yeah, and I thought the Patriots might be a team that would gain some stuff, but I say that to say it from the standpoint that you want consistency, you want
Mm-hmm.
programs that have high standards and kind of how they operate, and we saw a little bit of that I think with the way some of these teams handled the challenges. But like Brady was saying this morning, he said, "Hey, this season was like football for junkies, football for football junkies, because all they did was, you know, stay locked down, not a whole lot of off the field stuff like they normally have in a season. And so, if you were the one to really embrace just, the pure elements of football and preparation and focus and all that, then you could get an advantage. So apparently that's part of the Bucs' secret as well.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, for sure. So last one here for you, Jarrett. I want to highlight the column you wrote for USA this morning, or I guess, well, yeah, this morning, by the time the game ended and everything, because it focused a lot on the Chiefs, warts that came up and showed up last night, the distractions that they were dealing with kind of leading to this game. Is this a loss? And maybe did you get the sense post-game, from Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, whoever, you were in on the press conference with, where this could be a loss that actually almost betters them going forward? This could be like a wake-up call almost as a down-to-earth experience where they come back even in faster, stronger, better than next year? Is this a loss that could help maybe build a dynasty in Kansas City going forward?
Yeah, well, I don't like that talk about building a dynasty.
Okay.
I really don't. And we put a lot of this narrative, and in fact, all this stuff about Patrick Mahomes being, the next GOAT and all of that. As great as Patrick Mahomes is, and as much as we love him, it has to happen. And what happens in the media and sports talk and with the fans, everybody tries to spin everything forward, like now, like, okay, this is going to happen next year, next year, next year, next year. Well, crap. You got to go through this stuff year after year. It all changes. People can get hurt. People leave as free agents. People retire. People get older. I mean, stuff happens. So, yeah, it should be a wake-up call. I didn't get the sense that the Chiefs were too full of themselves, but the conversation, especially Mahomes, that kid just really carries himself with a great deal of humility, grace, focus, leadership, all of that. So the short answer is, yeah, they'll be contending again, but don't call them a dynasty, man. Don't even let that come out your mouth. You won one and you got to another one. I know, really. Think about the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, I agree.
They won that one that we talked about a few minutes ago in Jersey against the Broncos. They came back the next year and they could have won it until Malcolm Butler picks off Russell Wilson, right? And then, but I think when they won that first one, people were like, "Oh, look at them! They've got all these pieces in place, all these guys on long-term contracts. They got this defense. They'll win like 3-4 Super Bowls." No, this stuff has to happen year to year. I mean, so that's what I say about the Chiefs, man. They'll be good, and they got Mahomes, but Mahomes could end up being Aaron Rodgers. Where you're a great quarterback with MVP awards galore, and you don't win a Super Bowl. Or he could be Peyton Manning, 5-time Super Bowl MVP, 2 Super Bowls in however many years. So I don't like to talk about dynasties, okay?
No,
that's just giving me an idea of what to write about, as a follow-up to this thing.
I want to, because you actually brought up a good point about the Seahawks. That's a team I point to, and the reason why I kind of asked this question is because, even still, you hear reports years after, and who knows, right? We don't know the inner workings of the Chiefs, but you hear reports coming out of Seattle years after where there was, a division between the offense and defense. The defense didn't like how Russell Wilson, and that kind of, I don't want to say the infighting itself kind of led to their downfall, but there was factors within the team that that loss maybe kind of put them in the wrong end. Where you look at other dynasties, the Patriots or the Steelers or the Cowboys, where one of those losses almost helps galvanize you, if you will. Maybe that's how I should have phrased it better. Can this loss maybe galvanize the Chiefs going forward?
Okay. Yeah,
that's a better way to frame it. I apologize with the dynasty, but
no. I agree with you on that part of it for sure. And the whole chemistry thing is definitely part of it as well. But, that being said, maybe the Ravens got galvanized too. You know what I'm saying? By losing at Buffalo. Maybe the Bills.
Yeah.
So this stuff still has to play out. And every year is different. Because what if you go into next year and you lose, your best pass rusher to a knee injury in training camp or something? All these different things that happen over the course of time, you got to work through them. But in terms of, like you said, wake-up call, reality check, there's some of that, but there's always that in the NFL. So, but they got guys, and the one thing you hear about them, and playing under Andy Reid, that, there's a definite culture there of camaraderie and a culture of cohesiveness that it helped them. But again, the Bucs, they kind of got some stuff going with their chemistry too.